Hello and welcome to Chessbook Reviews 126. Before we start, I thought I'd give a little plug for a very interesting tournament indeed. The Isle of Wight International Chess Tournament, the 18th to the 23rd of February next year. This is the 30-minute crossing from Portsmouth with norm chances, £10,000 prize pool. There's going to be a 9-round Masters, a 6-round under 2000, that's ELO under 2000, a 5-round weekend Congress, and 3 Blitz tournaments. And the prices go up on the 1st of December. So what they're recommending you do is to sign up early on. And it is being held in the Ride School, which is, of course, on the Isle of Wight. It says it has 17 acres of beautiful grounds with stunning Solent views and great modern facilities. There's a large and free car park at the venue with 50 places. And it's sponsored by Whitelink, which is the ferry people, I think, isn't it? They provided a 20% discount, so that's a fifth on both foot and car ferry travel. And it's available to the first paid players in the Masters. Many local hotels also discounting car ferry travel with your booking. So there we are. And let me hold that up once more just to show you something for your diaries, your new 2025 diaries. Now, the most important thing today is to show you this, which is a book. This is what they call an unboxing, which has come from Ireland. All these stickers all over it. It wasn't poor Tim's fault, but unfortunately, I live alone and I wasn't able to be here when the courier company called twice, and then on the third occasion, they managed to fight their way through. And so I'm now going to open it. It's like Christmas Day, isn't it? It's better than Christmas Day. I don't normally get presents as good as this. Now, I should explain that I did a trade with Tim. We did a swap. I've sent him a book by Goldman about Carl Schlechter, and he in his turn has sent me this. Some old pieces of newspaper. I don't suppose these are about chess, but I'll just put them to one side in case they are. So Tim said, nothing if not thorough. Just talk amongst yourselves. This is a book about the very first world chess champion, Wilhelm Steinitz. Prior to that, of course, there were champions, but not anybody that was proclaimed in the same manner. And Steinitz was a formidable player. He was also a formidable writer, in fact, which I only really found out recently. Here we are. It's called Steinitz in London. A chess biography with 623 games by Tim Harding. Dr. Harding has for many years distinguished himself writing books, all of which I've got, about Blackburn. And I hope one day he'll write a book about Staunton. Tim, if you're listening, and you possibly aren't, I hope one day you'll write a book about Staunton. And thank you for this. This is published by Macfarlane and Company, who are an American publisher. I'm opening it up with trembling hands. It's called A Chess Biography. This is the subtitle, with 623 games. Tim's book, Eminent Victorian Chess Players, which was published about 12 years ago, would be my Desert Island book. So maybe this will be too, but I don't know. It says that Steinitz was the first official world chess champion from 1886. He assumed the title. Or even 1866, as he retrospectively but implausibly likes to claim. I love the word. I love the grammar in that. I love the caution. The book is entitled Steinitz in London because he lived in the English capital from May 1862 to October 1882. So that is a very long time to stay anyway, isn't it, really? 20 years. It's a biography and games collection covering that period. There are, of course, other books on Steinitz, and I'll put the details down below. And these are things I've already dealt with in various chinwags before. I've also dealt with various other books by Tim Harding. And once again, I'll put a link to that. So you'll get, I hope, a comprehensive picture, so far as I can be aware, so far as I am able. The games in this book are presented chronologically, as far as possible, but keeping games of the same event together. Since some early tournaments like London 1862 were not played according to strict round system, there is insufficient evidence to be certain of the sequence and dating of Steinitz's games. Casual games can also be approximately dated, and failing any direct evidence, we have assumed that they were played a month or so before the first publication. In other words, he's done his best. I'm sure he has. Tim Harding does not, Yes. He mentions the book which I bought recently, The Modern Chess Instructor, and I was under the impression it was a book about middle games, middle game strategy and so forth. But when it came, unfortunately, I couldn't have been more wrong. And it reminded me of MCO, which, as Tim will know, and I hope you know too, is not really the best book ever. But never mind. He thanks various people, including his travels abroad. And, despite some recent progress by researchers, Steinitz's early life and start in chess remain largely a mystery. Yes, I remember Golombek saying, does it really matter when Steinitz was born? And then in the lovable way that he was a journalist, primarily in his last years, Harry replied, yes, I think it does. And here is a picture of Steinitz. It's a comparatively young man, but also looking worried, with the moustache and the shock of black hair. There, see? Enormous amount of history here. And the very first game is against Mr. Hamp. Sorry, I can't even pronounce it. I seem to remember the game with when the knight went from c3 to a5 and hit the bishop, and you could take on f2, and then the king took, and then you took a lot of checks, and the king went across the board. I think that was one of his games. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think that is right, something like that. These are casual games played, possibly, when they say casual, they mean, well, they've recorded the moves, but it may have been over coffee or cigars, or hopefully both. I mean, good for them. Games played in Vienna. It says this one, for example, is played for a stake. So, which could have been, I think, say £1 or something in our money. Some letters. Lowentheil's letter, inviting him to participate. And here we have a match between Louis Poulsen and College. Both of whom have had biographies written recently, or quite recently, published by Macfarlane again. So check those out if you want a bit of background reading. But don't check them out before you've looked at Tim's book. Actually, I should explain that this book was published 4 years ago, and this is the first time I've even seen it. I've asked and I've asked and I've looked around, but these things do not grow on trees. It gives the cross table of London 1862, where Steinitz finished outside of the medalists, shall we say, but he did quite well. I got 9. He seems to have lost a couple and maybe conceded some draws. And here's a game against Owen, John Owen, which appears to be a sort of a funny Dutch, but with A3. Or maybe not so funny. Here is a picture of Mongredian, amongst others. I think Mongredian was one of Steinitz's early opponents. And I bought, as a child, I bought the book of the Dover about Steinitz and by Davide, and there was a Mongredian game in there, I think. He's the guy on the right in the, I showed you the triptych of the 3 guys. Yes, it's interesting that this is a Sicilian, but it says that Steinitz nearly always replied E5. He did. I think he should have broadened his repertoire, but he obviously didn't feel the need. I'm sure he could have played many, many different openings. Some lovely King's Gambits in here, which I shall enjoy, and some Evans Gambits, which I know is beloved of Tim, who has collaborated on 2 books about the Evans Gambit with Bernard Cafferty. There we are. Some photographs, some pictures of the buildings where tournaments were held, and a bit of the divan. And here's a picture of Simpsons in the Strand. Says they had redevelopment in 1903. Very similar picture, dated 1850. Yes, things didn't move so fast then as perhaps they do now. Whether that's good or bad, I leave you to decide, but for all of that. Well, here's some more casual games played by Steinitz against various opposition, some of whom I've heard of, but the question, and I'm sure that Tim does address this, but I've only just opened the book out of the package, haven't I? Is actually why Steinitz came to England. Why did he come here? Was he in fear? Was he seeking pastures new? Or did he think somebody sort of said, well, you know what you want to do, Wilhelm? You want to come over to good old England. I imagine perhaps a mixture of things brought him across. Here's a picture of the Reverend MacDonald, the clergy in the 19th century. From my perspective, anyway, did play a fair bit of chess, not just John Owen. And very interesting passage was too, so that's something else perhaps I can touch upon at a future point. Here's Steinitz playing against De Vere, another player whom I've discovered in recent times. And there's a picture of De Vere looking a bit wistful, but formally dressed. His match against Steinitz's match against Anderson, and some collaborative ventures, consultation games they're called here. Pictures, of course, of Staunton. Became a bitter enemy of Steinitz. It's always a shame when people fall out, isn't it? But I'm afraid it's inevitable in chess, really. They mentioned Dundee 1867, and in 1967 the young Craig Pritchett played in the centenary of that, and 50 years on they wanted Craig to play again. He was the only person. They would have liked to invite Olafsson, but he's now quite elderly and doesn't play much, or if at all, and poor old Craig got 0. And I wrote a little note, and not quite of sympathy, but compassion, shall we say. And Lara Barnes wrote back and said, yes, I was sorry to see that too. We were all sorry. Anyway, that's nothing to do with anything, but there we are. Picture of Mr. Newman, who was the winner at Dundee and 4th in Paris, it says. And Paris, Steinitz came 3rd. Winner was 2nd, and College, extremely well-known millionaire, I'm told, was the winner. Oh, you would never in 1,000 years have got that. Here's a picture. I'm very grateful for this. I've never seen. This is, in fact, who do you think that is? Unless you can read it. This is, in fact, Joseph Blackburn. I wouldn't have got that. Yes. Blackburn, to so many, was often the GOM, grand old man of chess. But, yeah. Steinitz finished 2nd to Newman. And it looks like a pretty tough tournament for him. Picture of Mr. Whisker. Not a very good picture, but you can see his likeness. So I'm not looking at a picture of the wonderfully anthologized, thank you to Richard Forster, Amos Byrne. Steinitz getting into his stride in 1872 and 3. And the formation of the English Chess Association, which was forerunner of the BCF and then the ECF, really. Here's a picture of the comparatively young. He looks concentrated, and Steinitz, there he is, bearded and I'm sure pale. From this point, the nature of Steinitz's life and character of this book changes. During most of the next 8 years, he ceased to be an active participant at the chessboard, although he remained very active off it. Yes, in other words, he became writer, promoter, and so forth. Possibly also teacher. You mustn't forget that. I dare say he did that in order to put bread on the table, not necessarily because of a social conscience. But I must be careful what I say because I don't want to appear disrespectful. The truth is, I just don't know. Here is Blackburn playing Steinitz and Kaiseritzky, a game which also appeared in the Field. I'm not sure if the magazine The Field still appears, because Linda Barton used to have a column there, quite a good one, which I used to read at school. But the Field, I'm horribly afraid, doesn't exist anymore. If it does, it doesn't have a chess column. So here's Steinitz playing Blackburn. And once again, Steinitz's absence from the board, it says, and he was no doubt playing games in private and preparing, possibly recuperating. Steinitz playing in Vienna. Enormous cross table of Vienna 1882, which in glorious form was won by Winower, of course gives his name to the line in the very promising line in the French defense. There was a book about the Winower family, which I found at work when I worked for Oxfam, and I didn't buy it, but I photocopied the chess references. So maybe that's something of interest. A long way down the table, 12th place, Chigorin. Good old Preston Ware is also in it, who is did think very independently about his openings. If teachings from Hugh Myers, which I have inherited, is anything to go by. I think he played things like A5. I mean, at move one, not halfway through the game. Here's Mr. Hoffer, who wrote that celebrated book, Hoffer's Chess. And if you see that around, don't buy it, because I don't think it's very good. I was recommending everything, but I don't recommend that one. Here's two old codgers. James Mortimer playing against Blackburn. Steinitz played against Mortimer and James Mason, who is not to be confused, and I don't suppose ever was confused with the actor James Mason. Steinitz last visit to England and games played up in Liverpool. More against Steinitz and a game against Karl Schlechter, which is of some interest. Schlechter was very good at snuffing out attacks, wasn't he? He was called the drawing master, but in point of fact, he was a full grandmaster by modern standards, let me assure you. Here's a picture of Henry Bird, not one I associate. I've seen lots of pictures of Bird, but I haven't seen this. There he is. There's Bird. See? Of course, he gave his name to 1F4, but a very great deal more besides. Some cartoons. London 1899 with Steinitz. So very sadly starting to show his age and finishing way down the table, 11th. It was a strong tournament. Extracts from Steinitz's books. And Steinitz moaning to Steinitz's grievances. I wonder if Tim toyed with the idea of writing a book with that title. I don't think so, but the notes at the end, little footnotes and so forth. Tim is usual meticulous self, following them all up. And we're coming up to almost 400 pages. In fact, it goes over that. Indexes at the back. There we are. A general index. So all of this adds up to a very, very nice book. And I said particular thanks to Dr. Harding in Dublin. There's the book. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope you consider entering the Isle of Wight tournament and also reading about the very first world chess champion, sometimes known as Wolf, and when he was in England, also known as William. But if you get Harding's book, you'll find a great deal more about him than that. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Chess Book Reviews 126.